Hello out there, and taking a first look today at the newly released Spyderco Shaman. It is a new for 2017 design, but it has a familiar feel, because if you've ever seen a native or had a Spyderco native, there's certainly some family resemblance here when it comes to the Shaman, because what this is just a twist, a take on the native design with some different dimensions, different components, and a different intention for what the knife is going to be. And that's sort of the gist of the video. So if you don't have time to watch the whole thing, let me leave you with this, that when I unboxed the knife, the first thoughts that I had, the first thing I thought about the Shaman was that it reminded me of a Cold Steel. That if Cold Steel had somehow gotten their hands on the native design and manufactured their own knife, that it would be a whole lot like this. Obviously, we'd have a triad lock instead of the compression lock, but what I'm getting at is just the intention and the focus of the knife, just how beefy it is and how it just is built and designed in order to be used heavily is something that, I don't know, just made it feel like something Cold Steel would do right off the bat, and is a bit of a departure from most of the EDC kind of friendly Spydercos that I have in my collection. We'll get back to all that in just a bit, but let me touch on some of the rest of the specs and talk about the other features of the knife. All right, so what we have here is a cutting edge of about 3 inches plus, 3.25 almost, of CPM S30V blade steel. It is manufactured in Golden, Colorado, USA Earth, if you had any doubts of where you are. And you can also see just a really nice stonewash. There might be a little bit of glare here. I'll try to cover that up as much as I can, but yeah, a nice stonewash here. Again, another departure for Spyderco. And I know they've been using the stonewash a little bit more often with their use of Maximet. But, you know, for the most part, Spyderco likes to do those satin finishes, and they look great, but it is nice to have something a little bit different, and they did the stonewash really well, so good finish on the knife there. We do have a saber grind with a nice wedge on top. We do not have a sharpening choil, so my buddy Stasa23 will not be very happy about that, but I think it's going to be okay. We do have some very good jimping, though, to make up for it up top. Nice, aggressive, really good traction on the jimping, and then also on this forward choil as well. So the blade as a whole is very good looking. Here is the knife in the closed position. All right, and now let's bring in the scale, and you can get an idea of why I feel this knife is just sort of that overbuilt kind of beater, because it comes in at a pretty hefty 5.19 ounces. You know, and not to say that Spyderco didn't focus on weight at all. I mean, you can see there is, let me open it up, and you can see there's an extensive amount of milling in here, so they did try to cut some weight, but the intention here is certainly to have a good, strong knife that you could beat up and use aggressively on hard tasks. That is for sure. All right, so we have all that. Now, as we move our way back, we have G10 handle scales with some nested liners. The G10 is pretty thick. It's extremely comfortable. It's not slick by any stretch of the imagination. So not grippy, but not slick. Just a really good kind of traction for you to get a good grip on. And as we continue to talk about ergonomics, we'll come to the one red flag that I really had about this knife right off the bat, and that was sharpness. With this open frame construction and the edges of all the G10, there is an amount of sharpness in a number of spots. And a little bit of a fit and finish issue. Not a huge deal, but I have seen that before, and it is very difficult in some cases to use a knife that has this kind of sharpness because it's hard to get it comfortable in the hand. You know, I've seen this kind of stuff more often with like Zytel or, you know, any kind of like glass-filled nylon handle material that's really sharp and plasticky, but there is a little bit of that here with this G10, and so I immediately took the knife outside and went to work on some cardboard and shaving some wood as well, just to have an understanding if we would have hot spots, because one of the lauded attributes of this knife was that there's supposed to be no hot spots. It's supposed to be a great heavy user. And the good news is that my hand was able to adjust very, very quickly to find a comfortable spot where that sharpness wouldn't affect me at all. just a natural adjustment. And sometimes with a knife that happens, and sometimes it doesn't, and it just constantly creates hot spots. But this one, luckily, we were able to avoid that, and just after a couple seconds of use, the knife adjusted into my hand nicely in a position that was good to use, but also wasn't causing any discomfort. So that's really excellent, and definitely a sigh of relief when that happened. One measure of discomfort, though, just from the aggressiveness of this jimping, is bearing down on it really hard. You might get some little bit of discomfort in your thumb, but I don't know. Whenever you have good jimping, that sort of comes with the territory, so it is what it is there, I guess. And so ergonomically, I would say we are in pretty darn good shape for extended use, and so that is good. And then as we move on back, you can see we have a 4-position pocket clip. Does leave a little bit of real estate here, but not too bad. It carries pretty well, so I'm okay with that. And one other thing, actually getting back to these scales and the fit and finish, and it might be a little difficult to focus on it, but you can actually see right here where this backspacer is, there is a lip, and it doesn't seem to me that Spyderco ever leaves anything like that on accident. So I feel like it's intentional, but again, just a little bit of sharpness, and I don't know if that is like a fit and finish flaw or if that's just the way they designed the knife. I have seen some knives with recessed spacers, but this is sort of in between the depth of what you would expect of that and being flush. So I don't know, just sort of a curiosity. Doesn't, like I said, doesn't really hinder anything, but it is, I don't know, not quite what you would expect to see from them. That lip is very visible there. So there is all that. Opening and closing. The action on the knife is pretty good, at least when you open it. Flies open with the Spyderco hole pretty quickly. We are running on bronze washers, so that's definitely a good thing. The compression lock locks up maybe better than every other compression lock I've ever had. The audible sound is just it's just really pleasant. It's a nice, strong, authoritative sound. Love it. Do that all day. So this knife does not free drop though, and does still need to be broken in. I might need to adjust the pivot, so that's one of those things that I try not to do until I use the knife for a while. So I'll follow up if I have to do that, and we'll see if it's able to free drop. I'm not sure if it ever will, but again, this isn't one of those knives that I'm worried about that with, because the intention here is to have a really strong, solid lockup, and if that means sacrificing that like silky smoothness in order to have a more sturdy, heavy-duty knife, that's the intention here. And yeah, again, just every aspect of the knife that I see just all goes back to being able to use it heavily and being able to use it for long periods of time, which is great because, it's something that I think the Native series not necessarily was missing, but it had an opportunity to capitalize on and get a little bit better. And this one really feels like that steroided version of the Native. So really happy about that. Happy with the blade steel that they chose. And I think overall at the $149 price point, you can do a whole lot worse. A lot of people might say, well, G10, the materials, like that is a little bit overpriced. And while I get that, if you are looking for a knife to fulfill this kind of function, the investment of $150 will be worth it. You can very easily make a comparison to a number of other knives that might be a better value. But again, if you are looking at this for a specific function, then I think the value will be there in the Shaman. So there's all that. That's really my take on it, guys. So any questions, any feedback that you have, comments, suggestions, let me know down below. I would love to hear from you. I know I did say in my last video, which was just yesterday, that that this Disc and Design Kershaw would be the next knife I talk about on camera. I am still taking a look at it, still testing it, using it. I still have some questions to answer about it before I'm comfortable putting it on camera and doing an overview. So we will be waiting on that for another couple days. And it worked out because I really wanted to talk about this knife today anyway. So yeah, anything else I can do for you, be in touch. But I look forward to talking with you soon. Have a good one and take care.